Hello. Today we're going to tackle a problem. And for me, when I was in school, I was pretty good at getting the right answer in math. As long as I just had to solve an equation, I could remember the steps, do it, get the right answer. But then when I was given a problem to solve, a story problem, and especially a story problem that had more than one step in it, I was so lost. And I couldn't figure out how I could be so good at math and yet have such a problem when it came to solving problems. I hope this might sound familiar to some of you, and to let you know that you are not alone in that. Math problems can be very confusing. So we're going to spend a little bit of time today and tomorrow solving some multi-step problems. And I was looking through my computer and different files that I have saved on there, and I came across a poster that I think is going to be very helpful to us. So I want to go on this journey with you of solving multi-step problems. I'm going to solve actually the first one on the sheet with you, and then that one will be done, and just show you how I'm going to use this poster and how I'm going to show my thinking to help me get to the answer and to make the problem a little easier than it first appears. So let's get thinking. All right, so here is the worksheet that we're going to be working on. I emailed this to your parents this week, and if you can't print it off or you don't have a printer, you can just, as always, use your math notebook or a piece of paper. What I would like you to do is just put the title, multiple step word problems, and then when you're working on a question, just put A so that I know which one it is. You do not need to copy the whole story problem out. All right, you'll just need to show me your work and your answer in your sentence. So before we go any further, I'm going to give you some time to get your worksheet or your notebook or piece of paper that you are going to be working on, and just pause the video right here. Go grab it so that you will be able to work along with me, and we'll solve the first one together. Okay, so that's the first thing. I also emailed a copy of this great little poster that we're going to use to help us. I did not make this one. I got this off of a website called teachertrap.com, but I really thought it was helpful and had a lot of helpful information for us. And I also really love the title, Conquer the Problem. If we think of these story problems as things to be conquered, it sounds a little more adventurous than just solving a boring old math problem. And I like that it gives us things that we need to think about before we solve the problem, while we are solving the problem, or during, and after we think we're finished. Okay, so we are going to start with the before, and we're going to solve problem A together. So the before stage is all about making a plan. First, we need to read and visualize. We've talked about this word visualize in reading. When we're making pictures in our mind, that's visualizing. We've talked about our visual memory when we're spelling words and remembering how words look. So visualize really means to make pictures in our mind. Okay, so that's the first thing we're going to do. Read and visualize. So here's the first problem. Haruto has tomato plants in his backyard. This year, the plants grew 127 tomatoes. Birds had eaten 19 of the tomatoes. 23 tomatoes had been ruined by bugs. He picked the rest. How many tomatoes did Haruto pick? Okay, now we're going to visualize. Let's make a picture in our mind of what is happening. Okay, and I'm actually going to kind of draw. You don't need to do this step. You can if you want to. I'm just going to use the whiteboard so that I don't use up all the space on my paper. And let's just see, I'll put this beside. Okay, so he had this year 127 tomato plants. So I'm just going to draw like a little tomato, maybe. Say that that's a tomato. And there was 127 of them. Okay. Birds had eaten 19. So I'm going to have like the birds. I'll just do these kind of birds flying up in the sky. Came along and they ate 19 of them. Well, that really is taking away 19, isn't it? Okay. And then 23 tomatoes were ruined by bugs. Now, I don't like this pen very much. Let's try this one. So I'm just going to draw a little, I don't know, a little bug. And 23 were ruined. So again, that's like taking them away because he's going to pick the rest. He's going to pick all the ones that are left after 19 were eaten and 23 were ruined. Okay? So there's my visualization. Reread and code. So I kind of did that when I wrote it down here because I reread the problem so that I could remember how many there were, how many were eaten, how many were ruined, and my coding, I kind of I figured out that it was going to be subtraction here that I was doing, okay? And then it says sketch and predict. And so I'm just going to say that this is my sketch here, and we don't have to always do all three of these things, but what's important is that we're planning out what we need to do. Okay, but I do think it's good to predict. And if we look at this little think bubble, what is the problem asking? Okay, so it's asking me how many he picked after these things happened, right? And what would a reasonable answer be? There's that word reasonable that we've used in class before, and I know that I can estimate to kind of find out about how much, right? So when I look at these numbers, and I'm just doing all of this in my head, I'm going to write it on here so that you can see my thinking. But when you're doing your estimating, you can show me your estimate, or you can just do that part in your head. 19 is really close to 20, and so is 23. So I know that 20 and 20 is 40. So I know that out of here, about 40 tomatoes are going to be ruined. And my brain really likes the tens numbers, the numbers that end in 0. So 127 is really close to 130. So I know that if I took 20 away from that, there would be 110 left. And then if I took another 20 away, I could take away that 10 to have 100, and another 10, 90. So I know that the answer needs to be around 90. Maybe not exactly 90, but around that. Okay, that's kind of what a reasonable answer would be. If I get an answer that's more than 127, well, I know that's not reasonable because that's what he started with before these things happened, right? And if I get an answer that's really, really small, like 10, well, that's not reasonable either because he's starting with quite a few tomatoes and we're only taking 40 out of there. So 40 and 10 would make 50, and that's nowhere near 127. So when I'm doing this step, I'm just really trying to sort of make a quick little guess about how much might there be. Okay, so that's my plan. And now I feel pretty good about understanding this problem because I know I'm going to be doing some subtracting. Okay, now I actually have to solve it and show my strategies and show my thinking. So again, you don't necessarily need to show your sketch, okay, and all of your estimating unless you want to. But you do need to show how you solve it. This is just what's going on in my brain as I'm planning, okay? And now I'm going to do this part, solve it. I need to show the strategies I use, show my thinking. I'm not just going to put the answer. Are my strategies effective and efficient? So that just means, do they work, and are they strategies that aren't going to take me a really, really long time to do? For example, I could draw 127 tomatoes and then cross out 19 and cross out 23. So 19 that the birds ate and 23 that the bugs were in. But that's not very efficient because that's going to take me a really long time. So I'm not in grade 3. You're in grade 3. We know how to do addition and subtraction equations. So we're going to use an equation to solve this, which is more efficient than drawing a whole picture. Okay? The picture that I drew did not take me very long, and that was just to help me understand what was happening in the problem, right? So that's different. Okay, so I need to show my strategies. Well, I'm just going to go back to my thinking here. I know that both of these are going to be taken away from here. So first of all, I like adding more than subtracting. I find that easier. So I'm actually going to add these together first before I subtract. Otherwise, I have to do two subtractions. I have to do 127 take away 19, and then I have to take that answer and take away 23. So I'm going to add these first. So I'm going to go 23 plus 19. And I'm going to use a strategy that I know this is really close to 20, and I know that 20 plus 23 is 43. I'm going to take 1 away because it's only 19, not 20. So 42. Now, if your brain didn't do that, you could write 23 plus 19, and you could do it this way, using our line it up method, 20, 30, 40, right? 9 plus 3 is 12, a 10 and a 2. Okay, but my brain saw this right away, so I was able to do it that way. Okay, now I'm not finished because that just tells me, what does this number tell me? Do you know? What does this 42 mean? Yeah, it's the total number of tomatoes that have been taken out of the 127. It's the 42 that he's not going to be picking. So we need to take out 42 from the 127 because that will tell me how many are left for him to pick. So 127, now this time I am going to do this, take away 42. Okay. I'm going to start up my ones. 7 take away 2 is 5. 20 take away 40. I do not have enough, so I'm going to go next door and bring over 10 tens. So instead of 20, I'm now going to have 120, which is 12 tens. 12 tens take away 4 tens is 8 tens. Or 120 take away 40 is 80. And that's 85. And that number tells me how many he should have left to pick. Okay? Now, there's a line over here. It's not really long, but we know that we should be putting our answer into a sentence. First of all, let's just go back to our poster here. So I've shown my strategies. I showed that I added, and I showed that I also subtracted that total from the total of the tomatoes. And it was efficient because I didn't draw out 127 tomatoes. And now I'm not finished. Yes, I have an answer, but I am not finished yet. So if we look at our poster, we have the check part that comes after we solve the problem. We need to check our work. Go back to the question, make sure I'm answering it. Okay, so let me just check my math again. Well, this one I did check because I actually did it 2 ways. Now this one, 127, let me just do it again. 7 take away 2 is 5. I can't do that. 12 tens take away 4 tens. Yeah, it's 8 tens. Okay, so I'm satisfied with that. We need to go back to the question. Now for this, I'm going to use a highlighter. And here is the question. If you have a highlighter at home, it's always good to do this. Okay. How many tomatoes did Hiroto pick? All right. I'm actually not sure how to say his name. So this is what he had to pick, and I need to make sure I answer this question. Okay. And I need to answer in a complete sentence. And I don't want any bare naked sentences, so I need to make sure I've got my capital and my period. And one last check here. So there's my complete sentence. Did I answer the question? How many tomatoes did Hiroto pick? Yes. Does my answer make sense? Well, if I remember what I predicted, my answer should be around 90. 85's not too far away from 90, so yes, I think that's a reasonable answer. So I just want to say that that was a lot of going back and forth between the different steps and looking at the poster and going back to the problem. But the more you do, then you won't even need to look at the poster to remind you of the steps. And also, one of the most important steps is planning. And really, this first one, if you can read and make a picture in your mind of what is happening, that is really going to help you with solving the problem and helping you get unstuck when you first read it and you think, I don't know what to do. So this step here, just especially this first part, really important. Don't worry so much about every little part on here, but make sure you make a plan and have an idea of what would be reasonable. But look, if you were following with me, we've got one done already. Now you are going to do this one today, and then we're going to solve the other 2 tomorrow. So off you go to conquer part B.